So we're talking about Mitt Romney's speech to NAACP, the Texas trial and Voting Rights Act. And Stephen, you made a point which people have made, I think, in a variety of different ways, both under President Barack Obama and previously, about the Democratic Party's relationship with black voters and the political effects of the fact that African American voters vote so in such large numbers and such high percentages for Democratic politicians, which is that Republicans don't have to court them, but that Democratic politicians can take them for granted, essentially. And I've heard this argument in many ways. And in fact, there was some reporting about people being frustrated at the NAACP convention that the president himself did not come, that Joe Biden came instead, and thought that was perhaps some kind of a slight. How do you see that, Diedrich?
Again, just the point about that. African Americans won't vote for Republicans. Like, I don't believe that. It's not that we won't vote for Republicans. I think it's that oftentimes Republican Party's not providing much for African Americans to want to vote for them. Right. So I just putting the onus on the African Americans, like we just have some prejudice, I don't buy into. And I think they do need to court us, just like Republicans need to court Latinos, just like every year Democrats are talking about, because Democrats haven't won the majority of white vote since like Kennedy or something like that. So they're always constantly courting white male vote. So, I mean, yes, all constituents should be courted. Mitt Romney, I don't think, did a very good job, and didn't do a very good job of courting African American vote, NAACP vote. And instead of saying, oh, there's nothing for him to do, he just needs to actually, there is records of people who stood by conservative principles who've made a much better, even George Bush got, I believe almost like 10% of the African American vote, and I think he did court the African American vote. So there's
I want to be clear. I mean, the basic reality of American politics to me, in this respect, in the post-Civil Rights era particularly, I mean, there was a different coalition that sort of pertained from, say, New Deal to the signing of the Civil Rights Act. But in the post-Civil Rights era, you have to choose as a political party whether you're going to have black voters or the white racist vote. And you can't have a coalition that has them both together. I mean, that's just the reality of American politics. I'm sure people will be offended by that. And I just want to be clear, I'm not saying that all Republicans are white racists. I'm saying that the white racist vote is going to go to one side and black vote is going to go for the other, because why would you have a political coalition that had both of those elements in them?
Social conservatism, that's something that I've always wondered, because with Latinos, the Republican Party tries to reach out and say, you're socially conservative, we're socially conservative, you guys are church-going folks, we're church-going folks, black folks, church-going folks, also socially conservative. And I'm just always surprised that there isn't more of a push. He mentioned it in his speech briefly, saying, I will defend marriage.
Right. Traditional marriage, yeah.
But just in passing. So I was surprised he didn't try to establish more of a connection like that and just the broader strategy of Republican politics.
Well, I think it's a little hard to do because there's still the overarching theme of some racism and some prejudice that is involved. But, if we can just go back to the point of maybe the Democrats take advantage of the black vote, I think that's a problem that the party has in general, is there's an assumption that not only are African American voters going to vote for Barack Obama again, but it's also the environmentalists that are going to vote for him again. It's also the gay voters that are going to vote for him again, no matter what happens. And that's why we've seen the Democratic Party just move to the center, because the people that they're actually trying to court now are those middle-of-the-road voters and not the others.
Right, although that logic, I mean, the amazing thing about that logic should pertain, right, in classical political science median voter theory, right? It should pertain on both sides, but it doesn't, right? So it seems to pertain only asymmetrically, which I think is frustrating to a lefty activist.
Well, but I think it does pertain on both sides, and that's one reason that the Republican Party lost the last election. That is, both parties have a problem. Both parties have a fairly solid base with fairly well-defined interests, a base that they pay lip service to. Because the truth is, the Republicans, if you look at their actual record in office, they never actually give much to the social conservatives. They just
to the social conservatives.
The social conservatives. They talk to them and talk about them, but there's the bills they pass, not that much. They both have that. They're fighting up. Both parties are fighting over the same small group of independent voters.
I would just push back a little bit on that. I think that may be true somewhat at the federal level. I think at the state level, that's not true. I mean, when you look at restrictions on abortion,
and that's what I was going to say. Yeah. And actually, Republicans get more black votes at the state level than they do at the federal level, also, which is a very interesting distinction. And it's also at the state level. It's in the local churches that you find these various conservative groups going around and trying to do outreach. They don't do as much as they were doing 10 or 15 years ago, but trying to do outreach based on these social conservative ideas.
I want to read this comment that Romney then made about his own speech, which there's no sound of, but it's a pool report. He's talking about getting booed. And he said, When I mentioned, this is him in a Montana fundraiser the same night. He said, when I mentioned I'm going to get rid of Obamacare, they weren't happy. I didn't get the same response. That's okay. I want people to know what I stand for. If I don't stand for what they want, go vote for someone else. That's just fine. But I hope people understand this. Your friends who like Obamacare, you remind them of this. If they want more stuff from the government, tell them to vote for the other guy. More free stuff.
What a great mobilization key. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, and in hindsight, maybe they just should not have invited a representative from either campaign, because what this does is it's going to mobilize the base. My question is this going to mobilize the black base? Is this going to anger the constituents, the NAACP, to go back and fight stronger? So is this a win-win? It just mobilizes everyone?
Well, I do think it's important that NAACP invite both presidential, nominees to come, because again, I think there is,
right, because this gets to the exact thing we're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
and we want more from both parties to address our issues, right? Democrats and Republicans who want that opportunity to have that interaction. But this whole free stuff, and then like Rush Limbaugh and others are taking it are really slamming down this whole free stuff piece, and this idea that minority voters just want free stuff, while hardworking, middle class, and unsaid but white people don't want free stuff. They're going to work. This country in many ways was founded on free stuff, meaning the land. It took some genocide to get to the free stuff
and free labor.
Then free labor, right? And so there's and more recently, the great white middle class was built on a lot of free stuff, on a lot of free higher education, on a lot of free access to highways that allowed suburbia to be developed, and subsidies on home ownership. Right. So it's just the idea, and this has been such kind of a racist ploy in the past. I'm hoping Mitt Romney wasn't trying to go down that road, but I believe that some of the more extreme Republican activists are using that to go down that road.
There's the welfare queen. There's the infamous strapping young buck of the mythology of Ronald Reagan buying a T-bone steak. Fraud and corruption reach a fever pitch on Wall Street this week. That's next.